Okay, trying again and hoping that the audio doesn't give me a hard time this time. If you can hear me, just put a 1 in the chat. Okay, looks like the audio is. Okay. Okay, the audio is working. I'm going to try to promote tonight's stream again. So, welcome to tonight's stream. I'm going to try to get started in a minute. Gotta go delete this other. Delete this other thing on Facebook and Twitter, and I'll be able to get started in a minute. Okay, gonna get started in a minute. Just want to get this. Okay, I'm gonna get started with tonight's show. I'm hoping everybody can hear me in tonight's show. And tonight's topic is going to be Black men need to understand the intangible of freedom. And what inspired me to do this live stream was the stories I read about the black male who sexually assaulted the mother of one and murdered her, and the incident that took place in Harlem where the young woman was attacked by that mob of males inside of that liquor store on St. Nicholas Avenue. And as I was sitting there thinking about these events, I thought about how a man's life can change in an instant and how he can go from being free to being locked up in prison for the rest of his life. And this is something I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis, as related to a lot of these beta males, because oftentimes with these beta males, they take their lives for granted. And the reason why many of your beta males take their lives for granted is because they've been raised in this single mother household. And because they have been raised in a single mother household, they see the world through the rose colored lenses of their mothers. And because they see the world through the rose colored lenses of their mommies, what happens is many of these men don't really have a good, solid foundation in their intangibles as related to manhood. Because a man who has an understanding of his intangibles of manhood understands several core principles that are essential to being a man. And one of those intangibles that a man understands is the importance of protecting and preserving his freedom. Because a man understands that in order to be able to go out here and accomplish anything that he wants to do, he has to have the intangible of his freedom. So he understands that his freedom is an important essential to his manhood, and he understands that his freedom is not something he can go out here and take for granted. And the reason why he understands he can't take his freedom for granted is because he knows that in this world there are a lot of enemies, and those enemies are out to take his freedom from him. Now, many of your black males out here, they really don't understand the importance of freedom. And again, because they have been raised inside of that single mother household and they see the world through the woman's eyes, they just take their freedom for granted because the female, she knows that her security is going to be taken care of by the state. So she doesn't really value her freedom too much. For her, she knows that her safety and security are going to be guaranteed by the state. So she has this notion that she can just do whatever she pleases. Moreover, your female knows that she has protection and support from other men. So she doesn't really appreciate the whole concept of freedom the same way a man would appreciate the concept of freedom. Now, a black man has to really understand the importance of freedom because inside of a white supremacist society, a black man has to understand that he has a target on his back and he is considered a threat to everyone. And because he's considered a threat to everyone, there are people out here who want to take his freedom. So most of the black males out here who grow up in single mother homes, they're never really taught this important lesson about the importance of protecting and preserving your freedom. And what happens is many of these black males think that they can just go out here and do whatever they please, not understanding that when you're out here, you are considered an enemy of the state. You are behind enemy lines, and people are looking to take away your freedom at any time. And this is why you have to think critically and be careful when you are out here because when people are out here, again, they don't see you as an ally, they see you as an enemy, and their goal is to take away your freedom. And your freedom is an important intangible because without your freedom, it's not possible for you to be able to move throughout this society. And this is something many of your black males, especially those who come from single mother households, they take their freedom for granted. And what they do is participate in dysfunctional and dangerous behavior that not only puts their freedom at risk, but puts the freedom of other black men at risk. Now, your black males today, they again grow up in the single mother household, so they see the world again through those female eyes, and they think that they have the same protections as that female. So they think that they can go out here and participate in all sorts of behaviors, and that they're not going to be targeted in any way, shape, or form. And this is something that I was really thinking about as I was reading and watching the videos as related to that incident at that liquor store in Harlem where that woman was assaulted, and when I was reading about that woman who was murdered by that thug, and the child, the father was wounded confronting this thug. And when you have these beta males like this out here, these males, they really don't understand the intangible of freedom. Many of these males take their lives for granted, and they think that they're invincible, and they think they're going to go on forever. But a man out here understands that his freedom is a very important thing, and a black man understands his freedom is an important thing. So he understands he cannot go out here taking all sorts of risks with himself, because all it takes is for one incident to happen, and that man can wind up losing his freedom in an instant like that. And many black males, they don't really understand how easy it is to lose your freedom inside of a white supremacist society where you're considered an enemy of the state. Because doing something as innocent as walking into a store can lead to a black man becoming arrested for an allegation of shoplifting, or doing something as simple as just going outside can lead to you having a target on your back, and you wind up getting swept up. And these things happen to black men all the time, but we seem to have lost people teaching the younger generation the importance of freedom and watching yourself out here. And a lot of the black males, they're not understanding that that your freedom can be taken from you just like that, and it can just be in an instant. And if you don't really have a good eye for understanding where trouble is, you can wind up losing your freedom just like that. And what can happen to you is you wind up losing years out of your life, because so many I watched during when I was a teenager, during the so-called war on drugs, hearing so many horror stories about black men who were caught up. They were just trying to get a ride with a dude, and what happened was the police stopped his car, and everybody was in the car was arrested, all because one dude had some drugs on him, and that man wound up losing his freedom, all because he was in the wrong car at the wrong time. But all dude wanted to do was get a ride home, and he wound up taking a ride to prison that cost him years of his life. And some guys wind up putting themselves at risk out here by doing all sorts of crazy behaviors, like again that incident in Harlem inside of that liquor store. When I think about the just craziness of that behavior, how that thirsty male, he was sitting there going after this woman, he clearly showed me that no man sat him down and taught him about how a man is supposed to carry himself, especially a black man. And nobody sat him down and told him about how all it takes is for one incident to happen, and all that's the thing that will take your freedom. He was just caught up in his thirst and his lust over this woman. And all he was thinking about was, I want to impress this female, but he wasn't thinking about more important things about himself, because he was thinking about the world from that female perspective and thinking, oh, I can just do whatever I want because my mother has no accountability. Nobody's going to make her responsible. But he doesn't understand, in the world of men, men are held accountable, men are held responsible, and black men are held accountable and responsible out here. And those black men, they are seen as enemies, and all it takes is for you to participate in one act of behavior, and that's the thing that those people are going to have the justification to grab you off the street. And once they take your freedom, it's it's just practically gone, and you're not going to be able to go about your business in this society and take care of your business. That's something many of your black males really don't appreciate until that freedom is gone. Because once you get inside of the criminal justice system, they take away your name, they take away your rights, and you become a number. And as you're becoming a number inside of their criminal justice system, you are not out here on your terms. You are in their facility on their terms. And when you are in their facility on their terms, what happens to you is they tell you when to get up. They tell you what to do. They tell you when you can eat. They tell you when you can sleep. And that's something that happens when you're inside of their criminal justice system, whether it be in the jail as they're taking you to trial, or they're taking you inside of the prison for sentencing. And once they get you into that system and they have you bound like that, and you come out, you still have to follow their rules. So you wind up losing your freedom, and you don't understand the value of your freedom because no man ever sat you down and told you about the value of your freedom. Because the value of your freedom is that ability to move throughout society. And when you can move throughout society, then you can go out here and build, and go out here and go to work towards building something for yourself. But when you lose your freedom, you wind up becoming restricted, and it becomes much harder to move throughout the society and maneuver throughout the society, because once they get a hold of you, then you can't really move. But if you are taught about the value of your freedom, the intangible of your freedom at an early age, then you can understand where to identify the pitfalls and traps that are out here, and you can learn how to move in ways that allow you to preserve your freedom. And that's one of the things that a boy has to learn at an early age. His father has to start teaching him the importance of his freedom, because once you understand about how important it is to be free, then you're not going to go out here and take stupid and ridiculous risks with your freedom and your safety, like what I saw at that store in Harlem and what I saw with that shooting incident on Frederick Douglass Boulevard. I saw two males who really did not understand the concept of freedom. I saw in one incident a guy who sexually assaulted a woman, and then he goes out here and murders said woman after she goes to bring her man involved. And I saw a guy who just practically took his freedom for granted and didn't even understand what he was throwing away when he went out here and got in his feelings about this woman, got caught up in his lust for this woman. He didn't understand that once these law enforcement officers catch him, he's going to jail for the rest of his life. And he doesn't understand that his life is going to change in an instant. And he's going to go from being this guy who was just outside on the corner of Frederick Douglass Boulevard to becoming a number and becoming part of that system. And he was going to be in that system for the rest of his life. That's something that guy wasn't thinking about. And the other guy who was attacking the woman outside the liquor store, he really wasn't thinking about the idea of, hey, I just assaulted this woman and now I'm going to do several years in prison, and all for an incident that really I didn't have to even get involved with, because a man with good male life skills, he's not going to get involved in that type of behavior because he understands he has too much to lose. And the most important thing he has to lose is his freedom. Because once you lose your freedom, you're not going to be able to maneuver and move around. You're not going to be able to have that freedom to go out here and pursue whatever goals you have in life. You're not going to have that freedom to go out here and work towards whatever you want to accomplish. And you're not going to have that opportunity to go out here and be able to work towards building towards something greater, because you have hindered yourself. And you've hindered yourself because you don't understand the value of one of the most important intangibles to manhood, and one of the most important intangibles of manhood for a black man is the intangible of freedom. Because freedom for black men is something we can't take for granted, because in this society, people have made efforts to restrict our freedom in this country ever since we came here. I mean, black men, we have to understand, there always been efforts to restrict our freedom because white supremacy fears black male leadership, they fear black male authority, and they fear black males getting economic power, and they fear black males going out here and being direct competition to white males. And because they fear the black man having power, they try to do things to restrict the black man's power. And the thing that they want to do to restrict his power the most is restrict his freedom. And your black males out here, especially a lot of the young ones, don't understand the concept of this. And they don't think that this can affect them, but they don't understand how easy it is to lose your freedom. And they don't understand there's a huge target on your back, and that target on your back is out there, and people are looking to take your freedom at any turn. You can just, again, walk into any one of these stores and wind up losing your freedom because people thought it took something, and you could wind up losing your freedom because you get into it with some dude out here, and there are targets from all people all over, whether it be these white supremacists or even dudes on the block. So a man has to really watch himself out here in this society. I'm not talking about being fearful or paranoid. I'm talking about really thinking critically when you're out here, because there's too many things out here and too many people out here who are eager to try to take away your freedom. So that's why you have to make efforts to protect and preserve your freedom above all else. You just can't take your life for granted and just play like you can be like everybody else, because that's another tenet that the single mothers love to teach their sons. They love to teach their sons, oh, you can be like everybody else. You can be joining this rainbow. You have freedoms like everybody else. And that's not the case at all. When you are a black man, again, I'm going to repeat this because I want people to understand this. There is a target on your back. You are being watched everywhere you go, and you need to be aware of who is watching you, because the people who are watching you are looking to take away your freedom. So this is something that most black males don't get inside of many female-headed homes. They oftentimes get these silly notions about, oh, you can do whatever you want. but they don't understand life as a black man in this country. They don't understand that the black man, he has to watch. He's free in this country, but he has to watch where he steps so he can go out here and maintain his freedom, because his freedom is not free, and he can lose that freedom at any time, and it can happen out of nowhere, and you can go from being a guy sitting out here thinking about making plans for where you want to go the next day to being in handcuffs and in the back of a squad car. And it can happen like that if you don't know how to think critically, one, and two, how to navigate through your emotions. Because a lot of black males, they, especially the ones who are raised in single mother households, they really don't understand that you have to get real control over your emotions. Because if you don't get control over your emotions, you're going to wind up losing it. And when you wind up losing it, you're going to put yourself in a situation where you're going to put your freedom at risk, and people are going to see your behavior and use it as a reason and a justification to go out here and call the police and have you taken away in handcuffs. And you may not get out of the system at all for months and years. And you're going when that happens, you put yourself at risk of losing another important intangible in your life. And that intangible is the intangible of time. And the intangible of time is a very important intangible. This is an intangible that you can't get back. And a lot of the guys who grow up in single mother households, they don't really understand the concept of time, because their single mommies have told them that they have all the time in the world, but you don't have all the time in the world. No, when it comes down to a man does not have all the time in the world, and a man does not have much time to get things done. So he has to value his time, because his time is precious. And because his time is precious, he has to understand that any behaviors he participates in that put his freedom in jeopardy, he's got to try to avoid those behaviors, because those behaviors can wind up getting him locked up and cost him time out of his life. And he's also got to keep his distance from toxic people, like people who are into all sorts of criminal activity, because just being around those people can put your freedom at risk. And another group of people he needs to watch out for are your predatory females, because your predatory females, they can put your freedom at risk, and they can put your freedom at risk because what they will do is try to goad you into an argument, try to goad you into a fight, or try to goad you into playing a white knight. And what happens in those situations is you're going to try to call yourself defending this female's honor. And what you're doing is putting yourself in a situation where you're going to put your freedom at risk for somebody else. And that's not very smart when you think about it, because if this female was in danger, you need to call the police. And the reason why you need to call the police is because you need to protect your freedom, because your intangible of freedom has the highest value, and you have to preserve it at all costs. So if something is happening, like in the case of that woman in Harlem, that type of incident where a woman says somebody put their hands on them, you don't go and play the white knight. You let the police handle it, because if you get involved with said individual, it's your freedom that's going to be put at risk, and you can't put your freedom at risk. You need to understand your freedom is something just like time. It is very precious, especially for a black man out here, and you need to preserve your freedom at all costs. And while you might want to call yourself doing things, you can't do them because in this white supremacist society, there's a target on your back. And a woman who knows the truth about white supremacy in this system, she's going to understand this, and she's going to understand she can't put your life at risk like that. And she's not even going to want to do that because she loves you and cares about you. And she understands your place in this society where you are an enemy of the state, behind enemy lines, and seen as a threat. So she's not gonna wanna try to push you out here and put you in a situation where your freedom is put at risk. So it's one of those things you really have to think about, but many black males and even some black men don't think about their freedom because they buy into concepts, one, that single mothers have taught them, and two, concepts we have been taught in this society about, oh, how you have all of these freedoms, but we don't really have freedom like we think until we run into a situation where somebody wants to take your freedom away. And that's something many black men don't really think about on these streets. They don't really think about how important their freedom is because when you don't have your freedom, you can't do the things that you need to do. You can't go where you need to go, and you can't work on the goals you want to pursue. So this is something you really need to think about and something you really need to really sit down and really put a focus on. Thank you, the BS is real, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. If you want to donate to the super chat, you may do so. And thank you, David Little, for the kind words on Stop Simping in the Workplace. I'm glad you're getting a lot of the book. Hey, G Boot 2786, glad to see you here. I am talking about how many black men need to understand the intangible of freedom. And this is a topic that I was inspired to do. I was thinking about the incident in Harlem, and I was thinking about those two incidents. And I was thinking about how many black men out here are not being taught an important male life skill, and that important male life skill is preserving their freedom. Now, this was something my mother taught me after I got into a fight in high school, junior high school, over a comic book. And it was something that stayed with me ever since I was 13 years old. Now, I was in my emotions about this kid taking this comic book from me, but I wasn't thinking about what was really important at the end of the day. Because one of the things that kids, they just want to be liked and accepted. And this is something about a black males. They want to be liked and accepted. They want to climb these social ladders, but they don't understand the risks that are involved. And because they don't understand the risks that are involved trying to go up these social ladders and trying to fight and defend for things, they don't understand what they're risking in the big picture. They're not understanding how important their freedom is, because once you get a record, that's it for you in the society as related to jobs. That's it for you as related to college. And it's even it for you as related to voting in certain cases. So you wind up pulling yourself out of society all because of something trivial like a look at a woman, or you pull yourself out of society by not watching where you're going out here, and you wind up losing all of your freedoms and all of your rights in this country. And it can happen just like that. Far Side, glad to see you here. He said that area where the liquor store is located and where the girl was attacked was a highly populated area. Yeah, I know about Harlem, and that's really scary if that was a highly populated area and that happened. But what's really scary is these kids just did not understand what they were about to lose. They were just so caught up in their lust for what they wanted, they didn't understand what they were going to lose. I mean, the attention of this female at the end of the day is nothing, especially when you consider that you wind up with a felony conviction on your record, and when you might wind up in prison for the rest of your life. I mean, I think about how so many people can have their life again change just like that, have your entire life just change. Hey, Samir Hall, glad to see you here. You can just lose everything in your life, and you can just lose everything and in an instant, and you can go from being out here on the corner or being out here thinking about what you're going to do for the next day, and then you're going into the criminal justice system all over something trivial, and you don't realize how small it is in the whole context of life. And a lot of guys out here don't think about how you can just lose everything in the context of life just like that. I mean, that's something black men really, they don't sit down and think about this critically. And because they don't think about it critically, they get in their emotions and they're just thinking, I need to get this guy or I need to do this such and such thing. But you sometimes have to pull back and say, you know, this is what is the risk worth the reward? And in the case of some of these beta males, you need to think about, is the crime worth the time? And a lot of these guys, they're not thinking, oh, if I do this, I'm going to go to jail for 5, 10, 15 years, or I'm going to do a prison sentence for an extremely long time. And in the case of some of these guys, when you get that record as related to a sex crime, you're practically finished because nobody wants anything to do with you. Because once you become a sex offender, that's practically a death sentence as related to you having a future in this society. And this is the kind of mark they want to put on a black male. And if a black male is not watching himself in this society, he can get that mark put on him easily by these white supremacists who are sitting here. They're waiting and eagerly waiting to put these kind of marks on you. But you have to have your eyes open so that you can identify these kinds of situations so you can step away from them. Because if you sit there and you have a good sense of critical thinking, you can sit there and go, oh, wait a minute, I see where this situation is going, and pull yourself out of it. And once you pull yourself out of it, you avoid that danger that could cost you your freedom, because your freedom is, again, a very important intangible. In fact, it's one of the most valuable intangibles a man can have, and you just don't want to lose it, because once you lose it, it's almost impossible for you to get it to be the way it was before you get a record. Now, your freedom can also be put at risk in other types of crazy situations. And these situations can be some things that are considered pretty harmless, like a guy who says, hey, let's go someplace, and you go to that place, and that can lead to you being in a situation where your freedom is put at risk. I mean, sometimes guys will say, let's go to this store where this guy's having illegal activity. And that's not a place you really want to be. If you're seeing a store like that, you really don't want to be there. And you should say, look, I'm just going to not go there. And I'm going to go someplace else because I need to value my freedom. I mean, they may have something in this store, but the reason why I'm not going to this store where there's illicit activity, I'm not going there because I don't want to wind up in the prison system and winding up having to get commissary at the prison store commissary where I'm having to pay $1 for a little Debbie oatmeal cream pie, or in the worst case scenario, being traded and exchanged for said little Debbie oatmeal cream pie. I mean, that's something black men have to, again, think about, because your freedom is an important intangible. And people, they out here, they think, oh, I can just do whatever I want. I mean, we can just go to the store. I mean, they got this product over here I want. Well, you have to think, if he's selling illegal activities in that store, then you don't need to be there. And the reason why you're not going to go there is because your freedom is too important to risk for whatever is in that store. Now, when it comes down to a lot of these females, they will try to put your freedom at risk. And that's where you have to start being more of a leader, because these, when you go out here and these females try to pull things like somebody did something to me, you have to take the lead for yourself. And you have to take the lead for yourself, because your freedom is not something you need to put in jeopardy. If something has happened where this somebody has done this female wrong and they want somebody to go stand up for them, that's not your job. As a leader, your job is to take control over the situation, and you take control over the situation by letting law enforcement handle it, because when you handle it, the chances of you losing your freedom go up exponentially. So you have to be a leader in these situations. You have to be the man, because a lot of guys think being the man is fighting and defending the woman's honor. But no, being the man is taking charge of the situation and going out here and being a leader and letting the law handle the situation and protecting the woman by using law enforcement to protect the woman. That is their job. And you don't need to put your freedom at risk, because as a black man, you need to understand that there's people who see you as an enemy. And sometimes if some of the females see you as an enemy, and they will set you up to go in these situations as part of their crap test. And that crap test can wind up putting you in a big pile of crap, where you wind up having to deal with a court case. And you don't want to risk your freedom in one of these court cases. I mean, life is too precious for you to go out here and put your freedom at risk. I mean, you only have one life, and you can lose that life, all because you don't understand the whole concept of the intangible of freedom. And that's another thing a lot of black men don't really think about as related to the intangible of freedom. They don't really even understand that in addition to your freedom to move about in society, that also relates to your life out here. And a lot of guys, they take, again, their lives for granted, because they believe the idea that single mom and the feminists have really brought up, talking about, oh, I can just life. I mean, they talk about, I have all the time in the world. I can do this later. But when it comes down to a man, there is no later. There is no tomorrow. He has to understand that every day in this country might be his last day on earth, and he cannot take his life for granted. Thank you, Mogul Maze, for the super chat. Thank you, Jam, for the super chat. Yeah, I'm trying to tell these truths because I want the young brothers out here to understand what freedom is. I want them to understand that you just can't take your freedom for granted out here. I mean, when I see these incidents out here showing me that nobody's sitting down and teaching these boys what they need to know about being a man out here, they're not understanding what's important about this intangible of freedom. All they're learning is, um, thank you for the Cash App. I really appreciate that. If you want to, thank, really appreciate it. I'm gonna leave a link to the Cash App so you guys can donate. But I see so many guys out here, and they're not getting what they need to know. And I want to, yeah, thank you, Ken, for the Cash App. I really want the guys, to know what they need to survive out here and be able to live. And in order to live in America, white supremacist America, a black man needs to understand the importance of his freedom. And a lot of guys, they don't really understand that, a lot of black men, they died in slavery. And that was really one of the most horrific things, because they didn't get a chance to have their freedom. A lot of black men were restricted during Jim Crow, and they never really got a chance to get their freedom. But what's really sad about today is we have a lot of black males who have freedom in this society, and they really don't appreciate that freedom that they have, and they take that freedom for granted. And because they take that freedom for granted, they put themselves in situations where they can lose that freedom in an instant, and they can wind up, even in some cases, losing their life because they don't understand that, yes, while you are free to go about out here, again, that target is on your back, and you have to watch where you go so that you don't wind up putting yourself in situations where you jeopardize your freedom and you jeopardize your safety. These are things that black men really don't think about in a lot of cases because they have bought into a lot of really ridiculous stuff from single mothers, really ridiculous stuff from television, and like concepts like the rainbow. But any black man out here and or a decent mother is going to sit down and tell you, you can't really do a lot of things out here. And yes, you have your freedom, but you have that freedom with limitations in certain cases. And you need to really understand where those boundaries are so you can preserve your freedom, so you can be able to go and move about freely the next day. So many of these guys, they're not really getting this because there are no fathers in the home, and because there's no father in the home to sit down and talk to him, he's sitting there thinking that he can be like this black woman. And he doesn't understand white supremacy will give the black female freedoms he doesn't have. And he doesn't understand that the world works differently for a black man than it does a black woman. So a lot of guys out here, especially these guys from the female-headed households, they think that the world is the same for the black woman that it is for the black man, and they don't understand that the world is a completely different place for the black woman than it is the black man. And you need to learn the unwritten social rules for navigating the world as a black man, because if you learn those unwritten social rules, then you'll be able to preserve your freedom. And those unwritten social rules can practically save your life. And these are things that only another black man can teach you, or you can just learn the hard way, which is being inside of these streets. I mean, I had to learn in some cases, thankfully, from my brother and my father, and I also learned from going to school in different places how to be able to carry and conduct myself in certain situations. Like when you go into some of these stores, like you have to understand you're being watched, and you have to understand, again, people are not thinking the best of you, and they're not looking there for you to be an ally. They're looking at you as an enemy, and they're looking for a way to take away your freedom. So you have to understand these things at an early age. And what I'm seeing, sadly, is a lot of boys are not being taught these things at an early age. And what we're seeing is more and more of these beta males going out here and participating in dangerous behaviors. And those dangerous behaviors are not only taking away their freedom, it's putting the freedoms of other black men at risk, because we are not judged as individuals, we are judged as a collective. Because when one black male goes out here and participates in some horrific act of violence and they do something, what happens is we all get judged by that one black male, and that standard is used to restrict the freedoms of other black men. Even worse, what happens is this is used to create stereotypes about black men. And again, that's what happens when you have boys who don't have fathers or men in the community to teach them how important it is to learn the basics about the intangibles of manhood. And one of the most important intangibles of manhood is understanding the value of your freedom and understanding why you have to protect and preserve your freedom. Now, another thing that a lot of black males out here like to do is they like to skirt the law. And you'll see some black guys, they'll get a ticket for a car, or they'll get some sort of summons to go to court, and they'll decide to blow it off. And what they're doing is putting their freedom at jeopardy. They're thinking, oh, the cops won't catch me, and they'll let this thing, the summons or this warrant thing, turn into a warrant. And that what happened when they get caught, they're wondering why they got locked up. And what they did was not understand you have to, when you get a summons or a warrant, make sure you go to court. And if you get a summons for something like a jury duty or a ticket, go and take care of that almost immediately, because you don't need to put your freedom at risk, because all it takes is for something small to happen and law enforcement will want to turn it into something bigger. And once they get a record on you, they want to get more records on you. And you really don't want to start that process. So what you want to do, instead of saying, oh, I'm just going to blow this ticket off, I'm going to blow this summons off, take care of that business, because your freedom is too important to put into jeopardy with these kinds of situations. Because there are a lot of beta black males out here who will just sit there and go, oh, I'm not even going to bother with that. I'm not going to show up for that. But if you don't show up for that, people now have the reasons to try to put a warrant on you and then use that warrant to take away your freedom. So what you want to do is go to that court, take care of that business, and you're taking care of that business because you want to go out here and protect and preserve your freedom. So you'll be able to go out here and take care of business the next day. What's going on, Big Money Iceman? Glad to see you here, talking about why black men need to understand the intangible of freedom. And this is a topic that I really think a lot of young guys really need to learn more about. I mean, I see so many guys out here who are in crisis, and this is something I talk about in the Man Crisis, and I talk about it as related to the intangibles of manhood and stop simping. And you can get the Man Crisis on Amazon right now in paperback and Kindle format, and you can get Stop Simping on Amazon. Get that on Amazon right now in paperback and Kindle format. Get another link. This one. Stop Simping in paperback, and get the book that David was talking about, Stop Simping in the Workplace. This is a book that will help you in your career avoid situations that cost you your freedom and possibly your career, because that's another thing people really don't think about is your freedom to go about the workplace, because all it takes is one situation and you wind up losing your job and possibly losing your career. The show isn't over yet, G-Boot. I'm just putting up these links to books so that people can know, go pick up these books. And yeah, the show is still on. I just want people to head over to Amazon real quick. I know I end the show usually with book promotion, but I'm doing it in the middle of a show today. And I really want people to pick these books up because, again, the more you learn about the intangibles of manhood, the faster you can learn how important it is to preserve your freedom. And your freedom, again, this is your ability to go and move about and be able to take care of your business. And you don't want anything to hinder you from being able to go and take care of that business. You don't want anything to impede your ability to be able to go out here and build. You don't want anything to impede your ability to make progress. Thank you, Gerald Colbert, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Glad to see you here, computer robots. I'm just getting, I'm in the middle of this topic because I see, again, so many young black males not understanding the importance of freedom. I mean, it's a lot of young guys out here. They don't understand how your life can change in a minute. They don't understand this. I mean, I grew up during the crack epidemic, and I've heard the stories. When I was working at the Strive Job Readiness Workshop, and in the year 2000, I heard the stories of guys who would say, my life changed like that. I mean, how they just pick you up, and then all of a sudden, your whole life is no longer you being on the block or you being able to go to work. It's you inside of the criminal justice system, and you're missing out on your life and your freedom. Meanwhile, everybody else is having their freedom. And as they are having their freedom, you are the one out here losing out on time and losing out on the time to make progress for the goals you want to accomplish in life. Because again, one moment in life can just cost you everything. And if you're not careful, you can lose it just like that. And it can be something as simple as you getting into a fight over somebody stepping on some shoes, you getting into a fight over a look, you getting into a fight over something like an item in the store that's not in stock. Trivial matters that, in the grand scheme of life, don't really matter, can cost you time out of your life, or even in the most extreme worst case scenario, cost you your life. I mean, you can wind up losing your life like that. And because when you're dealing with a lot of these beta black males, they really, again, don't understand the value of life because there's no man to sit down and teach him the value of life and why it's precious. Because when you're a black man in this society, again, you have a target on your back, and every day in this life could possibly be your last day on this earth. Excuse me. And that's something that many young men don't really understand. They think they can go on forever because mommy told them, oh, you can do anything you want and you can be free to do whatever you want, but they don't understand. That's the black woman. She's bought into these ideas from the white feminist, and she lives by a different set of rules. You as a black man live by a completely different standard, and because you live by a completely different standard, you have to learn quickly what those rules are for you as a man, and you need to understand that once you're out here and you're doing basic things like going to school, going to work, you have to be on guard and protect your freedom. Because if you don't put yourself on guard, you're not going to be able to go to school, you're not going to be able to go to work, you're not going to be able to do what you need to do. So that's why you have to look out for your freedom, and you have to look out for those people out here like these beta males or some of these dysfunctional females, and understand that you need to put some distance between you and them because these people will put your freedom at risk. I mean, a lot of guys out here, they will put your freedom at risk with the foolishness they're involved in or the stupid ideas they have about manhood. And some of these females will put your life at risk because they want attention. Some of them want to crap test you. Some of them want to start some drama. And you don't want to go out here and put your freedom at risk over their nonsense because you need to put yourself first. And you need to understand that if you're putting yourself first, you're going to look out for your freedom first, and you're going to look out for your ability to maneuver in this society first. And that's about protecting and preserving your safety. Thank you, Aaron, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. And again, if you want to donate to the super chat, you may do so as well. And if you want to donate to the Cash App, you can donate to the Cash App as well. I'm going to leave a link to the Cash App once more. Again, Cash App / Sean S. James. Leave it up there. You can put in the chat. Thank you, Aaron, for the kind words. I really wanted to get this content out here because I just don't want to see more guys doing stupid things because, again, one incident can practically cost you everything. And you go from sitting in your house to sitting inside of a jail cell or penitentiary, and you either sometimes wind up with life in prison or you wind up in the prison for the rest of your life. Or sometimes, if you do get out, you have to go out here and start trying to rebuild your life. And you shouldn't have to do that. I mean, if you think critically, you can go out here and protect and preserve your freedom, and you can go out here and be able to go take care of your business. But the only way you can do that is to watch out for people who want to put your freedom at risk, and watch out for situations where your freedom can be put at risk. So black men, they really don't understand these kind of things these days. A lot of black men, they're just thinking, oh, I can just do whatever I want. I can get up in this guy's face. But a situation where you get up in a guy's face could lead to you winding up with a felony on your record. And then 5 to 10 years later, you're not able to move up on a job, or you're not able to go out here and get a loan, or you're not able to even in some cases be able to vote. And these are things that can harm you in the future. And that's why you have to go and say, look, I'm not going to get into it with this guy. I'm just going to walk away. And I'm walking away not because I'm scared of this guy. I'm walking away because I'm smart enough to understand I have too much to lose. And one of the things I have to lose is my freedom. And that's something many guys aren't really thinking about. They're just thinking, I want to get into it with this guy. I want to show him I'm a man. But it takes a man of character to say, look, I'm not going to get into it with this clown. I see that he wants to go out here and start some mess, but I'm not going to go down that road because, again, too much to lose dealing with this guy. And I got nothing to prove to this guy because I got people who I'm counting on, and I've got things that I want to do in life. And I got other more important things that are a priority to me than trying to prove something to this dude who's in his feelings. And that's why you have to navigate through your feelings and work through your emotions. Because when you work through your emotions and think, you understand that, I may have these feelings about this guy saying this, but I'm not going to act on those feelings. And the reason why I'm not going to act on those feelings is because I have too much to lose. And this guy's issues are not my problem. I mean, I'm not going to lose everything over some dude's feelings. I'm going to just walk away from said dude. And I'm going to walk away because I understand that I've got too much to lose dealing with said dude. And I want to be back here the next day so I can continue working on whatever I want to accomplish. So that's one of the things you have to really think about when you think about the intangible of your freedom. You have to think about your future, because if you're not free, you can't work towards the goals of your future. If you're not free out here to go wherever you want and do whatever you need to do, you're not going to be able to work on those goals. And if you're not free, then you can't really go out here and be what you want to be. All you can do is sit up here and wind up having your freedom restricted by the state. And life is too short, again, to have your life restricted by the state. One of the things you want to do is keep the state out of your life. And the way you do that is by watching how you move about in the world. And this is something a lot of black boys and a lot of black males are not being taught at an early age. And because they're not taught these things at an early age by other black men, they wind up on the road to the prison pipeline. And that prison pipeline is something men can go out here and cut off if they go out here and start teaching like I'm doing in this stream, sitting down, talking to a lot of guys out here about this whole concept of freedom, because people really underestimate the value of freedom, and you don't understand the value of that intangible until it winds up either being impeded or you lose it. And again, you can lose it in an instant if you're not thinking critically about where you are and where you need to be. Because, yes, there are going to be people who are going to push your buttons. There are people who are going to try to agitate you. There are people who are going to try to upset you, but you got to try to stay in control. And the reason why you have to try to stay in control, even though you're angry, is because you understand the importance of freedom. And the most important thing you can do in a situation where you're dealing with these kind of people is walk away, because walking away means you can preserve your freedom. Now, people will say things like, oh, this guy's a coward, or things like that to try to goad you, but you're the one in control because you're the one preserving your freedom. And again, you're preserving your freedom because you want to be able to get out here the next day and be able to do what you need to do in order to make a living and be able to build and be able to pursue your goals. So when I looked at those situations that were in Harlem, I was looking at guys who, as I saw it, were not only men in crisis, but men who were never taught essential male life skills. And one of the most essential male life skills any man, especially a black man, needs to learn early is that intangible of freedom and why they need to preserve their freedom. And it's something every black male, it used to be taught back in the day, but we're not teaching the boys today. And because we're not teaching the boys, a lot of them are learning this thug culture and goon culture, and they're not understanding how fast a situation in your life can change, because your life can, again, change like that. I mean, you can go from being on the corner, just talking with your friends, to being locked up. And it can just be a small, minor incident that can lead to this happening. And your life can go from you just having fun to you being in a horrible place. And that, again, can happen because you're not keeping your eyes open and understanding the intangible of freedom. And you really have to understand that intangible because it's one of the most important intangibles a man has for his manhood. I have to say it is the foundation for the intangibles of manhood is freedom. And thank you, Kali Laws, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. This intangible is the foundation for him, because when you have your freedom, then you have the ability to make decisions as related to your dignity, as related to your self-respect, as related to your self-worth. I mean, this is important as related to your personal power. And a lot of guys just don't understand the importance of having and maintaining personal power. And this is, again, something I talk about in Stop Simping. I talk about personal power and the intangibles of manhood. And the freedom is one of those most important intangibles of manhood. Every man has to really think about and really make an effort to preserve. And if you grow up and you learn this at an early age, it just becomes like an instinct. And as I grew older, I began to use it like an instinct and a reflex to say, look, I'm just not going to be in this situation, not going to deal with this type of person, because I got too much to lose, and I'm not going to risk things in my life over foolishness that won't really matter in 5 to 10 years. Now, the guy who understands his freedom understands that if he makes a decision to get involved in something trivial, it can cost him 5 to 10 years later, and he doesn't want to lose 5 to 10 years of his life or lose ability to build in 5 to 10 years. So he's not going to wind up risking things that are important because he understands his freedom is the most important thing. And when you are free to go about things, then you have to think about things that are more important than your feelings about a situation. So when it comes down to a black man's freedom, he has to understand it has an extremely high value, and it's something you need to preserve because you can lose it just like that. And there are people who want to take your freedom away, and there are people who want to try to take it away, sabotage you so that you can lose your freedom. And you have to be able to identify these types of individuals, because if you don't learn how to identify these types of individuals, like some of these manginas, some of these simps, some of these predatory females, you can wind up going away for a long time. They're going to have their lives. You're not going to have yours. And you need to make sure there's a way for you to have your life. And your life needs to be the most important thing for you. And that's something many males aren't really thinking about. They're not really thinking about as related to freedom. And they really need to start thinking about it, because you just, again, can lose everything like that. And I don't really want to see a lot of black guys out here losing everything like that, all because they don't understand the importance and value of freedom. So I'm going to wrap up to tonight's stream. And I really want to keep the momentum going on the SJS Direct book sales. Last month, I had 60 book sales, which is a major milestone. And I would ask everybody to pick up a copy of these or put in a pre-order for the SJS Direct 21 books, like John Haynes, Taking Care of Business. So that book is available on Kindle pre-order right now. And I also have ISIS Revenge of the Salvadores. And I want people to put in a pre-order for that book on Kindle. I'm going to leave a link to that one. So those are the two books of the Spring 2021 catalog. I'm asking everybody to put in a pre-order so we can get the sales up. I'm also asking everybody to head over to Amazon and one of my books on Amazon. That because I really want to keep the momentum going for the sales on the books of the SJS Direct imprint, and I really want to keep those sales up. I have a lot. I have, again, 3 books. I have No Good Deed, which is a comic, which is my first comic that I've ever published, that I did with Bill Walko, and that book is only 99 cents. So I'm asking everybody to please pick that one up. Last week, that was the #1 15-minute reads on Kindle, and it was a huge hit. And I want to hit #1 again. I mean, this book is only 99 cents, and it's something that you can spend $1 on. So that really helps with the sales. It also helps with the rankings, and each dollar you helps a long way. So I'm asking everybody to pick up a copy of No Good Deed. I also have John Haynes' A Conversation with Death for 99 cents. So I want to thank everybody for coming out to tonight's stream. I'm hoping you guys pick up some of the books on Amazon. And if you want to help me make more live streams like this, you can donate to the Cash App. And I'm hoping you click the link to the Cash App and donate to the Cash App. That helps also. And again, I want to thank everybody for coming out to tonight's stream. And I hope you'll be there for next week's stream, where I'm going to see what the topic is. I haven't really been, thinking too much about topics. This was one of my viewers suggested about talking about thirsty guys, and I really wanted to not just deconstruct the thirsty guy again and his violence. I really wanted to get to the foundation of the. Thank you, Joy. I really wanted to do a solid presentation with this one. Thank you, Callie. I really wanted to do something solid here. I just didn't want to go into the violence of the thirsty guy. I really wanted many of these guys to understand what they were losing when they go out here. And I really wanted to do a stream where guys understood something about freedom, because nobody really talks to guys about the importance of freedom. So I really wanted that to be tonight's stream. And I'm hoping, again, you guys come out for next week's stream, where hopefully I'm going to try to have more content on men's issues. So thank you for coming out to tonight's stream, and I hope you'll be there for next week's stream.